Apex the Entertainer. Prepare to be redonkulously entertained by a balance patch update. I'm just going to give you guys some input as far as what I think of the most recent patch update, along with tentative ideas on the upcoming season, which I'm super excited for. A little nervous. Just kidding. I'm not nervous. You're nervous. I'm not nervous. Um, it's just scary because as far as the season goes, it looks like now they've released all of the factions that they'll be integrating into this kind of legacy-based season where they bring back old dealers. They bring back old dealers with a focus on the faction that was voted as their favorite faction tied to that dealer. And then in some way they're going to change that faction, I assume. How that's going to affect ladder, what ladder is going to look like, I don't have the slightest clue, but I'm going to speculate, of course. And then they talked about changing the progression in some way, which is the part that makes me really nervous, because games that you can invest in, it can be scary when they say they're going to change progression. So we'll see. I'm not nervous, you're nervous. Okay, so again, it looks like they've released all of the it looks like they've released all the dealers and associated factions for the upcoming season. So in order, starting with the most recent, we found out about Barman Dwarves and Mimi Gnomes. Barman Dwarves are okay. I mean, they're going to have to do some balancing, obviously. And I definitely don't think this balance patch even is going to give us a good reference point on what to expect out of ladder. Because if you were to take something like Barman Dwarves and put it against Fiddle Orcs, Barman Dwarves will crush it every single time. Like, not even close. So they must be doing something associated with matchmaking or unit balancing to make that make any sort of sense, which I'm very excited to find out. So, Barm Dwarves, Mimi Gnomes is no surprise. Mimi's kind of known for her gnomes. She's certainly somebody I don't have a lot of experience with. I also don't have a lot of experience with Thunk, who got elves, which is weird. I mean, I must be missing something there. I find it super odd. I would have never ever guessed Thunk elves. I never hear about Thunk elves, but apparently that's what we voted for? Question mark. Which one of you silly geese didn't vote for his orcs? Because I mean, that's kind of weird. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the voting got pretty screwed up, in my opinion. Then we have Fiddle Orcs, another bust, in my opinion. Mort Pirates is really fun. Mortimer Pirates were awesome. Again, I'm very curious to see how they're going to deal with power creep if they're trying to integrate these factions and dealers against each other in any way. Um, and then Xochi Nords, I'm also thrilled about. I used to have so much fun with Xochi Nords. That's probably the one I'm most excited about, although a close second was our very first release, which is Saiyan Ninjas. I used to have ridiculous Saiyan Ninja games, so lots of stuff that I'm very excited to make content for. So let's dive into the patch a little bit and see if we can get even the slightest idea of what might be happening here. So first and foremost, Junkyard Guru is swapped with Mr. Outmaneuver. I don't know how I feel about that. Again, I have little to no experience with Mimi Gnomes. So when you look over Mimi Gnomes, obviously this is pre-alchemist nonsense. So of course she's not going to scale her augments. So it looks like a combination of augment volume and kind of this link avenge trigger combo in addition to that, which I don't know, makes it seem odd because it's kind of like you're just swapping one part of what she's doing for another part. Although I will say, I think I would assume, again, I haven't done any research into Mimi Gnomes, but I would assume something like double Funacycle can get really ridiculous if you can just get a ton of modules out. So I would assume this is just going to shift her meta to a little bit less of a link avenge focus and a little bit more of a module volume focus. So I assume we're just going to be trying to create a ton of modules with like Captain Handy and with Dory Quick Fix and with Cogsworth. And again, maybe they're going to add something or adjust something to make that happen even more often so she can get ridiculous with just a ton of volume and modules, which sounds really fun. So of course, like I just brought up, we're swapping out shareware with double Funacycle, so same point, right? He's going to duplicate all the modules that you can generate, so if you can get a ton of modules in hand, place them on something within his same row, you're getting double the modules. So we're talking buku bunker module numbers. Raw volume. It's a numbers game, which sounds, I love that idea. Anything that's a numbers game. Quick plug for possibly, not to brag or anything, but I may very well have contributed to them expediting this change. They ruined it. They ruined the infinite gold build. I don't know that I can say that they like. I mean, I don't know if I'd say even that they ruined it. But you know, if it wasn't obliterated, it was hurt pretty bad. I did play around right away to see if it was still possible. It is still possible, but if nothing else, it's much more difficult. And it was already difficult because if it goes bad, then you lose points most often. You don't just like get third or fourth, right? Because you're investing so much into something in your hand. There was ways to play around that, but in this circumstance, I do have to say I think it's done for unless something crazy happens. And I did kind of theory craft around this, and I did try it out quite a bit. You know, around the concept of like keeping a plain grumpy first, farming invoker, using golds to get your tier 3s, and kind of stocking those first, integrating overseer to see if that would help contribute, only playing one Discord gate instead of two to see if you gave up some scaling and had an extra cycle slot. And even then, I wasn't really successful. So seems like it's done for. Womp womp. That was quite the era, though. I'll say that. I'll never forget that. That was so much fun. Minted Embezzler. This was already a ridiculous unit as far as tempo, and they just were like, you know what? More ridiculous. Let's make it extra strong. If you haven't been using this card, I highly recommend it, actually. I think as far as a neutral goes for tempo, it's amongst the best. It's very strong if you get this on your first turn on tier 2. Super great card. Doesn't really do anything else than that. Obviously, it doesn't mean much for long-term scaling, but tempo's tempo. We love us some tempo time here at Apex and Sons and Co. Prodigious, prodigious, or maybe prodigious, probably prodigious recruit. I'm very interested in this one. Having that long-term scaling of the shop unit buffing is something that I was never a part of it being important on ladder. So I'm super excited to see what I can do with shop buffs and just get some ridiculous units in the shop scaled on up. So she's going to help contribute to that. This is a massive change, obviously. It's tough though, because anything like this where it's not like broken, which I don't think this is going to be broken, it's hard to justify keeping a slot, especially with something that is based around cycling. Now, what is interesting about this is when you think about a card like this and you think cycling, you would think elves, right? So then you would think Thunk because it's Thunk elves that they teased. But Thunk doesn't have Prodigious Recruit. And then you would think, okay, well, so who else is it in that's already released? The only dealer currently that has Prodigious Recruit is Tuck. This is very interesting. I'm curious to see if they're going to swap around which neutrals apply to which dealers, maybe put all of the neutrals that exist into all of the pools for the dealers. I don't know. All sorts of fun stuff that could come from that. So that's a little teaser to get your brain thinking. But then it's funny, right? Because even Thunk, as far as his elves go, not really focused around shop buffing, right? When I think of shop buffing elves, I think of Mortimer elves. You know, I've had some pretty killer shot buff Mortimer games with Lifespring Nurture and Ray of True Shot. So I don't know. I just find that kind of a conundrum, and I thought that was something worth focusing on this video. So time will tell, but that's one of the things I'm excited to see. Point being, you still need a cycle slot for builds like that, generally speaking. So while I think this could be really cool, I don't think it will be much more than something to hold space on the board for a little bit until you find something better. Iceblood Berserker, kind of a staple card. It was certainly underpowered in my opinion. I think this often got swapped for something else. So if you look at Iceblood Berserker, right, we can see how the pips are going to adjust along the way. So as Iceblood Berserker upgrades, he does get substantially better in comparison. I don't remember offhand what his pip adjustments were previously. I haven't looked at him in a while. But the short story is I would be surprised if this wasn't noticeably better in long-term scaling for him as he upgrades. So +6/+3 for every frostbite applied. Maybe we're going to see something adjusted with Xochitl to make her apply frostbites even more, but she was pretty good at applying a lot of frostbites to begin with. When you look over Xochitl Nords, Testudo is insane. Insane card at spitting around a bunch of frostbite. Mistwalker, of course. You've got Seasoned Mountaineer. You've got Chillblood Dweller. You've got Bobby Savage. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to generate Frostbite. So yeah, I think this one's really interesting. Again, Xochi Nords is one of the ones that I was far and away most excited about. So I'm really thrilled to see if this card is more playable than it used to be, because it was playable, but again, it was just kind of a placeholder until you found something better. This could be something that circumstantially you actually hang on to in the late game, depending on how fast you've scaled it. Carp Diem gets a little buff. I'm pretty excited about the changes to pirates, to be honest with you. Mortimer pirates I really, really enjoy. I have had some awesome Mort pirate games. You're going to get plunders like crazy with Mort. You know, when you look over his kit when it comes to pirates, it's heavily focused around opening treasures mid-fight with things like Fishy Revenge, Redhead Captain. So that's something where I'm really, really thrilled to see what happens with more pirates. As I saw the adjustments, it made it so that I actually think, as much as I thought it was going to be Saiyan Ninjas or Xochi Nords, that I'm most excited to see what happens with more pirates. Now, that's only because of what we're seeing in these patch notes. Time will tell depending on the other adjustments that come, but they already substantially adjusted more pirates in a way that I think is really, really cool. So you're going to plunder like crazy. Getting discounts on 2 units instead of 1 is a major adjustment. Do not undermine what that could do. Super excited to see how that applies. Discounting stuff, economy, whatever it may be, it's kind of the name of my game. Axe Enthusiast, give your front row +3 damage. I mean, if we look at the pip layout, it does mean that he can scale up quite a bit at the end. So giving your front row +9 damage, that can be fairly substantial, right? You can get him early, you can make him gold. So yeah, I mean, I could see this being a staple depending on what they do with Fiddle. So I don't think it's like riveting stuff by any means, but I wouldn't take it for granted. Let's put it that way. Orclops, I am very interested in the fact that it seems like they're having to nerf certain things in accordance with whatever they're about to do on top of these changes. So that's something I think we can dig a little deeper into as well. So Orclops is one of those. Instead of the Orc ally to my right attacks immediately after I do, it's a different Orc ally to my right attacks immediately after I do. So it's ensuring that you can't stack Orclopses to attack with everything right from the get-go. And I'm very curious to see why they were so worried about that, because I didn't see that necessarily breaking Fiddle meta in the past. So again, this is where my brain's cooking around how they're going to deal with power creep and see something substantial come out of Fiddle Orcs. So I think that's really cool. Okay, Rocco gets a nerf. I'm very excited for this one. The reason I'm excited for this is because anytime you see them have to cap something, it means that it has the potential to be limitless. So that gets me very excited, again, for what we're going to see with more pirates and just how many treasures we can pop on out, because it seems kind of like the same volume game with Mimi Gnomes that we may see with treasures on more pirates, which is awesome. Again, I love the high volume stuff. It kind of feels like Hearthstone APM, so we'll see what happens. Very excited. Glade Restores gets a buff. Instead of return a different unit on the board to your hand, it's return a different elf unit on the board to your hand. That's a big deal. That's most definitely that's going to matter. It's a big change. It's an important one. We'll see how they use it. Overclocked Avenger, another one that I'm excited for because they're capping something that probably has a higher potential than it used to be limitless, I would assume. Or they're trying to balance what is going to be a major increase in power to match power creep. So super cool. We'll see. Barrier Refresh is super fun. I love Barrier Refresh in all sorts of different games. I've already played it a tiny bit with Mimi in the past, so very excited to see that. Stormtoss Crew gets a major buff. Again, so excited for what they're doing with more pirates. So if you look at the pip adjustment for Stormtoss Crew, it's crazy, right? Crazy. I mean, again, this is why the more I'm looking at this, the more excited I am for more pirates and what they're going to do with it. Because if we're in a circumstance where they're having to nerf Rocco because of how many treasures you're going to be able to generate, then Stormtoss Crew could be insane because they haven't capped how many times this can happen within any given turn. And +9/+9, every time you open a treasure, I mean, they're capping Rocco at 6. If you do it 6 times every turn, that's 50/50 to all of your units. And granted, this is not going to be perm stats. This is going to be temp stats mid-fight, But again, they're capping Rocco at 6, right? We may see much crazier raw treasure opens mid-fight. I'm excited thinking about it. I think more Pirates is going to be so cool. So this card, amazing buff, should be substantial. And as we're talking about more Pirates, I need to make sure to hone in on Butt Liquor Booty because, dude, uh, amazing pirate card. So much fun. So much fun in Clan Wars. Fun when it was in ladder for Tuck. So obviously, same idea, right? Same concept. He doesn't have a cap on how much you can buff him by opening treasures. So so I know I'm expanding a lot on the fact that they nerfed Rocco, but I just think it's a telltale sign of what's to come. Speaking of more buffs, Redhead Captain gets a buff. This one is also pretty exciting, to be honest with you. Not so much because of the jump in stats that she gains with her treasure opens, but because of the increase in the cap. Being able to do it 6 times per turn with what I assume is going to be a meta for Mort based around opening lots of treasures is awesome. Two extra treasure triggers. That's really cool. Now, it may be that I'm overthinking this a little bit and getting a little too excited because it might just be that they expect 6 treasures to open generally in any given turn based on Redhead Caption in combination with Rocco. But I mean, if they're going to deal with the power creep, then we should have a good way to scale our Fishy Revenge, and then that should get out of hand if all goes well. So again, we'll find out. Okay, boarding party again. So excited, so excited. Instead of when a pirate ally in the front row triggers their ability in combat, it triggers twice. When a pirate ally in front of me triggers its ability in combat, it triggers twice. If you're not careful, that sounds like a nerf. It is certainly not a nerf because it doesn't have a trigger cap anymore, which is so awesome. Sorry, I don't mean to make this all about more pirates, but I'm freaking excited to see what I can do with this. I think more pirates are going to be bonkers. Mermaid's Kiss, speaking of buffs, and again, this is very exciting in combination with the other stuff we're seeing. Instead of just give a random pirate in the front row +3/+3, it's give a random pirate in the front row +3/+3 permanently, and a random keyword until next turn. So that's super interesting because it gives you a way to ensure that your frontline units can attack more often, and this is happening for each plunder, which means that if you're triggering more plunders and you position properly, you should be able to re-trigger keywords like barrier after the barrier's already been taken away. So you can imagine a frontline unit that's really strong, i.e. something like Storm-Tossed Crew, sitting in front of your boarding party, triggering everything that he does twice and continuously getting barrier or revive so that he just never leaves his spot in front of boarding party and you can just trigger it nonstop throughout the fight. And of course, there are other things that are exciting about that, right? Things like Master Saber that can help make sure plunder abilities trigger. Shark Attack opens a treasure when he attacks, so that's one I'm going to be excited about. Sea Titan, same thing. If they're going to deal with a scaling issue and power creep, then Sea Titan might be able to get way bigger than he used to be able to get, especially in combination with Storm-Tossed Crew. So if you can have, in my head, I visualize having 2 boarding parties in the back line with Storm-Tossed Crew in front of one and Sea Titan in front of the other, and just continuously giving them barrier, and in Sea Titan's case, multi-strike. So you're just, man, it could just crush if it's as good as I hope it is. And hopefully we're just getting a taste of what the adjusted units look like, because it may be due to the way they're going to adjust the dealers further that we can only see certain things for certain dealers. So we might see refreshes like this for everybody. We might just be getting a bigger taste of more pirates. And man, I hope that's the case, because we will have some real competition on our hands. Meat Crusher, kickstart an attack, give your Nord units +2/+2 for every unit with less damage than me, is now +1/+1 for every unit with less damage than me. That's kind of a bummer. This was my favorite card, far and away. When I used to play a ton of Xochi Nords, I used to be able to get crazy stuff happening with her. I still have with Xochi Nords in Clan Wars, giving her things like multi-strike and just buffing her up. Super cool card. And it does look like that accordingly dropped her scaling with her pips. And along those same lines, and the same situation with his pips, Winds of Winter got a nerf. Still Berserk, still Kickstart attack the weakest enemy, but when he attacks, he's only gaining 1 damage permanently for every unit weaker than me. It wouldn't surprise me if, generally speaking, we are seeing nerfs to the newest dealers and buffs to the older dealers. Again, trying to balance the power creep in some way. But who knows? Again, with the buff that they gave to the tier 2 Nord, it may mean that it's just going to be a lot easier to create lots of units on your opponent's board with lower damage. May just be raw nerfs to help with balancing. I don't know. Time will tell. But yeah, this put me in kind of a little bit of a downer because I was very excited for Xochi Nords. I'm much more excited for Mort Pirates than when I very first saw the posts, but we'll see. And then Mr. Outmaneuver gets a little bit of a nerf as well. Again, there's a reason that I have much more to say about Mort Pirates because those are the most changes we're seeing given to one dealer. So it may be a lot more exciting for the other dealers than it looks currently. But for now, I wanted to deep dive on Mort Pirates. And of course, as I'm talking about Mort Pirates, don't forget that Booty Bill is in Mort's Pirates. When an ally's plunder ability is triggered, give your units +1/+1 permanently. So we're just going to trigger a ton of plunders. Oh man, could just get out of hand. Okay, so that's a little taste as far as what I think we have in the upcoming season, along with what I think of the current patch notes. Rest in peace to Infinite Gold Demons. Very excited to see what happens. Ready to show you guys some ridiculously entertaining Mort Pirate content around the corner. Thanks for watching, guys.